Well, welcome to today's virtual open house for the advanced training. And so let's welcome everybody today with a round of applause. Yay! Yay, welcome. So now I'm going to throw that question back to you and say, wow, so what's your story?
Well, I came to believe that you cannot change people because, okay, I've been working in the industry, I've been working as a trainer for many years, and I get feedback from my clients. I always ask them for feedback, and I realized that when I come out from a session, I had something in my mind and they come out with something totally different. They say, wait a second, I was supposed to, help them with this and that, and it doesn't work, okay? So realizing this, I said, well, I must find another way. And I got involved with a training. King Galway came to Italy for 3 days. 3 years ago, I met Magda there, and he gave a 3-day workshop. And I understood that coaching was the way, okay, for me, because I train people in business communication. I work with professionals, and I understood that it's all a matter of mindset and also in my personal life. And so I'm really interested in, taking part in this training because, as you also said, it's not so easy to help people and to ask the right questions, to handle questions. I think that is a very delicate issue. Okay, so I hope, and the other thing I was fascinated by, you said that we don't have to think like a cause-effect, in a cause-effect way, but in a matrix kind of way. And I'm very curious about this too, because I'm a mathematician. And so when you said the word matrix, I kind of like that, and I said, okay, I would like to understand that too. So I'm very curious about starting this new adventure. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Keep the curiosity going.
Hello, Ben. It's nice to see you again. Greetings, everybody, calling in from Singapore. I was fortunate enough to be part of cohort 277, and we completed our first round a month or 6 weeks ago. I considered sort of continuing the journey immediately, but I thought I'd wait a little bit. And I think over that waiting period, what's settling with me is that, the first sessions we learned how to make this pie, and we learned how to follow the recipe for this pie. And now the pie's been in the oven and it's cooled down and it's settled, and probably eaten. I now want to know about the ingredients.
So we're gonna watch that video, and as you're watching that, I want you to think about, what's that relevancy to the second level advanced training? What's the message that we want to bring across to you as you watch this video clip? Can do? Great. So enjoy this video. Great. So of course we are not here to become a Shaolin monk. Nor neither are we talking about learning Kung Fu. But to a large extent, you understand the message that coaching skills, to a large extent, is a craft that is similar to us cultivating something, like how the Shaolin monk learns to master those Kung Fu skills. So as you're watching this video, I'm curious to find out from you, what stood out for you as you watch this documentary?
As you were talking, I began to think about what's my journey and why would I be interested in challenging myself to go further. It's not so much around the task of coaching, but actually what it brings to others. And when I can see it's bringing something to others, I get an amazing sense of fulfillment. I only need that to happen every now and then. It's enough to get me through for months. And it is almost like a spiritual piece. It's what you feel really connected to. And I love that language about it being a mark of faith.
Thank you, Ben, and hello, everyone. I'm calling from Auckland, New Zealand. It's 7:30 p.m. in the evening, my time. Thank you for sharing this video. It's fascinating. to watch. Being a Chinese originally from China, I relate a lot about Shaolins and Kung Fu, although I don't know any. I cannot play, but it's a what I think it relates to the coaching that I'm on this journey. It's quite similar, and I noticed the journey. First of all, it's quite long. The monk got like 11 years to get his master whatever MCC degree in in warrior monk. I noticed that the two different parts of the assessment. One is how he performs the movement, the martial arts. The other is what they call the scriptural test. It's different domain. One is very practical and you can see, and the other is something different. It's all within. And these two different parts, when he was trained by his mentor, they mentioned using your heart. I think that's quite similar to coaching. It's those skills and techniques are important, but I think on the way to get a person to the mastery level is the way their mind works. It's a way of being, and that's what I resonate most from this.
Well, thank you, Sherman. Well, I really know, I know that many of you would like to say something in regards to today's video, and in regards of time, I would just want to quickly sum it up by saying that we are all here driven by a bigger cause, and that is with this possibility that change is possible, and henceforth we want to do our utmost best to shape up ourselves so that we can be that instruments to bring that process through for another human being. And in this second level training, it incorporated three very important aspects. And I know that, well, to many of us, 6 months is like, oh gosh, it's like 6 years, And some of our students who have completed all the way till the third level training were saying that, whoa, this is like another MBA program. It takes almost 2 years to come to the end, But each of them walk out of it with a very different perspective. And we hope that at least the second level training can bring these three aspects together for you. It may be just a starting point, but we are glad that it brings you to the starting point to begin the competition. So this three domain is the domain of doing, which is basically your executions. Coaching process is a process of inquiry, and you learn from the core training. Where does your questions comes from? It doesn't drop from the sky. It comes from a very deliberate, intentional way of listening to something. And that will challenge you to be thinking about what is it that I understand about this whole process of change. Knowledge is critical to enable you to be very intentional. So we're not talking about teaching you facts. We are talking about an understanding. How does the science work and what makes that work in the process? And I firmly believe that when students understand the engine behind it, it allows them to be more swift, precise in their executions, because how does it taste like right now. Okay, so you will be more intentional when you are listening to what the client is talking. Okay, so that's the domain of thinking. And apart from doing and thinking, apart from the domain of doing and thinking, there's also a domain called the being. Okay, a way of you showing up. Well, certainly this 6 months is not going to complete the transformation process, but we hope that it is a process in which you get into your cocoon. Okay, when you start to melt down and begin to discover something about yourself that you never had. And I believe, events like this are instrumental to take us to the next level. Okay, and we hope that this second level training, through this 6 to 7 months of being together in this learning environment, talking about mastery, talking about fine tuning our skills, experimenting, and get confused with all the learning and understanding what's that. We hope that it brings you, at the end of that journey, a newfound identity of a personhood of a professional coach. Just like how education prepares each individual for their vocation, like engineers walk out of 3 years study thinking like an engineer, same for educators and lawyers. So the learning environment, to a large extent, shapes the way we will respond. And we hope that this 6 to 7 months could be that cocoon stage in which we can allow you to discover a stronger identity of being a professional coach, or at least the work of being a professional coach. Cool. Great. So with this in mind, allow me to right now bring you quickly into how the second level training is brought together in terms of the structure to achieve these three domains. Certainly, I must say that it is not a complete solution because it's 6 months period, not 6 years. Okay, and what we want to do is to do as much as we can to touch these three particular domains. The program structure is comprising of actually five different phases of learning over this 6 or 7 months period. It first begins with the learning lab. And this time round, we would like you to have a sense of what makes us do what we do in the core level, and help you to also learn a little bit about the learning concept that we talk about when in the core training. We keep on emphasizing the way we think influence how your clients learn. And we keep on saying, oh, it's about a learning theory. So here in the second level, we want to share with you what exactly is the science that we are using to create the ACC conversation to shift the thinking. We will be talking to you about the double loop learning concept, and also one of our technology, we call that the integrative whole concept. So I firmly believe that when you gain a deeper understanding on how these two sides comes together to create a process, it helps you to be more intentional when you are listening to what the client is saying. That basically forms the first part of the learning lab called understanding the transformative shift. The second part here is called the personal mastery, which basically is about how you as a coach can continue to nurture a way of being. Now, again, I wish that we could have a lot more time to talk about personal mastery in terms of the role of attention in your mental capacity and how you can practice some of this mental exercise to strengthen your presence. So again, because of the limitation of time, we use this as an introductory module to share with you our experience and some practical steps that you can embrace and you can embark on to start to nurture your own personal mastery. So it's meant to be introductory into how to go about nurturing a way of being. And along the way, starting from next year, 2022, Cecilia will be introducing other little short learning sessions together where we as a collective can come together and nurture our mastery, and grow together. So this advanced training is just a way to open up the pathway and give very specific example and practical best practice on how you can nurture your own personal mastery. So that's the second part. And the third part of this learning lab will address this, we'll talk about facilitating clarity. So students who has attended the live coaching demonstration always look forward to this module. Why? Because they're always fascinated about metaphor. How the metaphor kind of shifted the client's perspective and way of looking, and they were so eager to say, okay, now teach me how to, create that metaphor. Okay, so in this module, it addressed more of a way of doing to help students to have a much more wider tool set to help to expand your client's mind. In the core level, we only teach very simple handles like, and when you say this, what do you mean by that? And what makes that important? What positive difference will that give to you? If not, otherwise, on the scale of 1 to 10, where are you right now? So kind of like they get a little bit sick and tired of that formulated process. And that's where something is calling out to them and say, hey, there is more robust tools that enable you to be more fluid in expanding the mind. So this module called Facilitating Clarity actually support you to have a much more fluid conversation in expanding the mind, tapping onto the principles, and most importantly, your very own voice. Okay, so that it doesn't sound like another coaching conversation. Okay, you will have your unique voice when you're expanding the client's mind through the use of the metaphoric language. Cool. Great. So that's so much about the learning lab, which is basically to ground you and to teach you practical tools. The next part of the learning, which is a very important module, and that's called the Competency Lab. Here, we're going to depend on the ICF core competency to help our students to shape out their muscles. Now, ICF has beautifully crafted the core competency and has invested a lot of work to clearly define at each competency how do they expect the behavior. So what RCF does is that they give you two very powerful resources. Number one, a way of understanding what is required at a PCC credential level. And second, a measurable behavior that allows you to demonstrate it. So it's like as you demonstrate it, it strengthens a certain concept of how a coaching conversation needs to be executed at the advanced level. And the beauty of it is that the study of the core competency is not a separate subject from ACC conversation. We are very fortunate that when we created Coach Masters Academy and built out the ACC conversation, we have the privilege of using the core competency as a base to weave into our ACC conversation. So in this core competency lab, you will begin to see how ICF core competency is an integrated part of our ACC conversation. Okay, and then when the two come together, what we are appreciating is that your coaching conversation will sound very elegant. Okay, yes, it gives you the professional feel and flavor in your conversations. Okay, good. So now we have these two big pieces. These are the two major learning that happens in the second level, the learning lab and the competency lab. Then once we have completed that, we move on to the next phase of the learning, which is basically integration, allowing all the nice wonderful knowledge and understanding that you have gained to translate that into skill set. So how do we achieve that? We achieve that through these three different phases of learning. The next phase is the peer practice. And this time round, you will have at least 4 weeks of peer practice. That means you will meet up together with the rest of your coursemate. And that's why we call the blind lead the blind. Partly because most of the students at this level has incomplete learning. And with this incomplete learning, they try to have a conversation to kind of figure out what exactly is happening. And as such, they kind of end up with confusion. Is that exactly what we are doing? And stuff like that. And let me just assure you that confusion is a part of learning. You have to talk out what you actually learn to figure out what exactly that you're not clear about. Because in the learning lab and the practical lab, basically you're just receiving a lot of information. And we are not sure exactly how are you understanding this concept until you get to talk it out with your fellow classmate. And then you scratch your head and say, oh my gosh, I don't think I really got that right. Okay, so it's intended to help you to understand or to identify where your blind spot is. And it's okay at this stage of time that you cannot get the full picture together. But at least you know those are the areas that you need to pay attention to because it's not clear to you. Of course, we are able to contain the situation by having student support, which means the previous graduate students to come in to join you. And the reason why we do that is because their understanding is not as sophisticated as the faculty members, which sometimes out of good kindness wanted to give the best to the students, they often raise the bar very high. So instead of helping them to understand, they make the learning curve a little bit more steeper, especially when this person Ben Cole is teaching. It's always kind of like raise the bar very high for the students. You see what I mean? So this time around in the peer practice, we get student support to come to you, and they will be there to tell you, no, just do this, and this is what is expected. So in this way, we're able to lower down, the benchmark to a point that you can grasp what is it at this current level of your learning. So this 4 weeks is a very rich learning session together. Some of our students are telling us, oh, we get to know each other better than our spouse because we get to share all our struggles that we don't get to talk to our spouse. Okay, so this is a very good time of bonding together with your classmate and forge a stronger friendship. So after this peer-to-peer practice, that's where we then move on to the final stage, or not the final stage, but to the next stage, that is the practical lab. Now, most of you are very familiar with the practical lab because this is what exactly you did in the core level. Right? It's a case study, and this time round, it will be facilitated by our faculty members with the objective of providing you objective feedback okay, in terms of what is expected to kind of like bridge the learning gap using a case study. The only difference between the core level and the advanced level is that at the advanced level, students, which is the coaches, will get to invite a friend to the practical lab as a client. And this friend is supposed to be someone who has not done a coach training before. Wow, this will offer all the students a very rich learning on how to catch the fish in the actual river. Okay. Okay, and that's basically what is this all about. How can I execute my skill in a more realistic operating environment? Clients who have never done the coach training before, it's not the same as your friend who understands the drills. Okay, we call that a well-trained mind to respond to the inquiry. But most of our clients, if this is our first time receiving a coaching, they may not be able to understand where exactly they need to pay attention. And henceforth, it really provides all of us a very rich learning experience. Okay, so that's the 4 phases of learning. And in between the peer practice and the practical lab, we have this called the mentoring sessions. Now, the mentoring session will happen simultaneously, concurrently from the start date of the peer practice till the end date of the practical lab. So, what's the purpose of the mentoring sessions? Well, altogether, you have 3 mentoring sessions, a one-to-one session with a mentor coach with the goal of helping you to bridge your learning gap. Okay, it's a very customized approach whereby your mentor will take a look at your coaching conversation and provide you with feedback on how you are understanding it and then how to bridge that or calibrate that for you based on your learning progress. Okay, so 3 sessions running from the start date to the end date of the practical lab. Simultaneously happening is the practical lab in which you embark on the learning journey on seeing how the markers, the competency needs to be demonstrated on a real life clients who have never been coached before. So that's the big picture here in terms of how the program is being structured. By and large, not by and large, the heavy loading where the learning happens most intensively is in the learning lab and the competency lab. The practical lab, as you went through in the core training, spans over 8 weeks, in which you have the flexibility to plan your time around it. But certainly, the more you attend, the better it is. Okay, so what needs your attention is really on the learning lab and the practical lab. The good news with the November intake is that the competency lab is happening simultaneously. I mean, as in the dates are the same for the 3 p.m. and the 8:30 p.m. So if you cannot attend the 3 p.m. and you want to attend it live, you can actually switch between the 3 and 8:30. Okay, but for the learning lab, it's spread across with 1 week difference. Now, that brings my discussion to the end in terms of how the program is structured. So now I will open up for a dialogue session to see whether is there anything that you felt that you would like me to clarify further regarding the second level training. Okay, everybody fully complete? No other questions in the back of your mind? Basically, we have prepared the FAQ too to make it easier for students to get all their answers through the FAQ videos, like what's the difference between the ACSTH and the ACTP path, something along the credentialing, the PCC and the ACC credential. Just take note that ICF does not require you to have an ACC credential. You can actually apply for your PCC credential directly. Okay, and the difference is a direct path. So even though you might, I mean, even if you have finished your second level training, and if for some reason you don't have enough clients coaching hours to meet the PCC credential, you still can use the ACTP path to apply for your ACC credential. The difference is that you don't need to submit any recording to ICF. You don't need to get extra mentoring sessions. The ACTP certificate is a direct path. All you need to is just submit the certificate and declare that you have the coaching experience, and that will qualify you to apply directly for ACC or a PCC. Okay, so those questions are all addressed in the FAQ for you. Good. So let me wait here for a while to see. Hi, Louis, do you have a question for me?
Yeah, very quick one. The schedule. Where can we find the schedule of all the sessions, please? Yeah.
Great. So would you mind to just send an email to Maya and then she will just give you a link? If not, otherwise, just go to the website and look under advanced development and click on all what you need to know about the program. So all the schedules can be downloaded from that. But the best way is just send Maya an email and she'll just give you that link. Okay. So it's starting on the second week of November, on the 8th and 15th, depending on whether it's at 3 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. The learning and the competency lab will finish between November and December, so that starting in January, we can start to do more of the practical lab or peer practice. Okay, good. Thank you. Hi, Karen.
Hi. I'm just doing the core, the core training. Was there any recommendation? I'm not a coach in my day job, so I'm not doing coaching hours as part of my day role. Is there any recommendation if it is sensible to move straight through, or other things to do in between the core and the advanced stages?
Yeah. So the way I would like to respond to that question is, I would just have to assume that you have the luxury of time to enjoy a learning sessions, and then the framework is something that resonates with you, and that you see the value of, acquiring the competency to shift people thinking, and you enjoy and you are able to see the impact of that process. If that is all yes, then my recommendation to students is that don't have a gap year in between. Okay, partly because you need to understand that the core, from an instructional point of view, the core training is simply introducing a new system of thinking for your mind. That is to acquire a learning mindset. Because in the past, prior to attending the core training, your mind is more powered up with a logical thinking of bridging, solutioning, or even finding the root cause, or I mean, actioning steps. So your mind is not used to use a reflective learning conversation to draw out something from people. So the core level training is simply to introduce a new mindset so that you got a new system of thinking as a coach to draw out something. And we use the ACC conversation as a quick fix to help you to create a process to get understanding. That works if your client is ready to have a conversation and your client is ready for change and your client is reflective. But often not, we know that there are complication during the process of the conversation where things that is not supposed to be in the process appeared, like too concerned over the situation, skewed perspective, resistance, or there are just awareness that is being blocked by the logical mind. So as such, the coaching process requires a little bit more directed intervention to allow the clients to evoke a greater awareness and understanding. So that's where the second level comes in to support the students to get into that level. The problem is that the core training only initiate the process of a formative stage of acquiring a new way of thinking. Now, the problem is that if you have too long a gap, your mind actually deteriorate backward because it is at a formative stage. And henceforth, if you want to acquire a much more solid competency, the best way, according to sports psychology, is to intensify your middle stage, the intermediate level. Then take a longer break at the intermediate level to allow it to settle before you move on to the next stage of mastery. So usually if you're going to ask me, I will ask the students if you can enjoy learning, if the schedule allows you to, put aside time to work on it, go for it. You will find more value putting level 1 and level 2 together. After all, when I designed the program, it's only one level. But for practical commercial reason, because not many students would love to spend 9 months in training, right? and and you can take a look, only less than 10% of students who register every year move on to the second level. So from a commercial point of view, we're going to lose out, this wonderful technology if we don't split it into two different stages of development for our audience.
Okay,
Thank you.
Maybe I could just ask as a
Go
follow-up.
ahead.
I hate to ask this question. The cost of it is visible somewhere.
Yes.
To have a look.
No, I would just recommend you just check in with Maya and just tell her,
Okay.
I'm interested and what's the cost, because we do benchmark that according to students in a different country, because we recognize $1,000 for people in Africa continent means very different for a $1,000 people living in Singapore.
Okay.
Okay, and we are very sensitive to that, and we just want to make sure that it is made available for people, to enjoy the learning, in a very fair system. So those are in a developing country, don't come and use this against us and say, why is it that people in Africa continent they get to, well, because they're not earning as much as you are in that part of the world that you're in. You see, so please understand, that is our intention. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question. Anyone else? We still got 2 more minutes. Anything that you felt that you'd like to inquire since I'm here with you? Or just walk around. Tick, 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 tick. 5, 4, 3. All right, we got Mark. Mark, go ahead, Mark.
Hi, Van. I have a question to which I don't think you'll have an answer, but I'm weighing up the two different times of day for the advanced course because it will be 6 a.m. or 8 p.m. in New Zealand. And I think that's right. The different intakes, or am I?
No, is there's one that is there's one that's 3 p.m. afternoon Singapore time, which is basically 8 p.m. New Zealand time. Then there's another one that's 8:30 p.m. Singapore time, which is into maybe 12, I think. No, 1:30 in the morning, New Zealand time. So these are the two time slot right now. The 6 p.m. London is cancelled.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
Yeah. So you have only the 8 p.m. evening or the early morning 1:30.
Oh, that makes my decision very easy. Okay.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank
Ben.
you. Join me at the 1:30 in the morning. That's the best time. Nobody will disturb you. You can have the 2 hours of undivided attention to enjoy your learning if you are living in. Okay, thank you. Louise, I see that your hand is
Yeah,
raised.
excuse me, another very quick question. How long do the sessions, I guess
How long does this session last,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, let me just be very candid and open. On paper, we put 2 hours, and vast majority of the faculty members can keep it within 2 hours, especially during the competency lab. But just watch out for this person called Banco when he teach. Just make sure that you give yourself a little bit half an hour. But usually we will end the learning right on spot of 2 hours. But I will always stay behind for another 30 minutes just to allow students to have more dialogue around the concept. Partly because the module that I'm teaching is a little bit more abstract. And henceforth, it may not be grasped immediately as compared to things like, the other topic that is pretty quite concrete in the knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. It's not that we want to stretch the time because we didn't plan it well. It's just because there are certain modules that students get so fascinated about it, and they just, just kind of like keep now the discussion keep going, and we just do not want to say, okay, let's just stop it. It's 2 hours. You know what I mean? Because after all, this level of training is in service of our students to enrich you, and we want to share whatever that we have to benefit you. So that's why, for some segment, it might be a little bit longer, but generally speaking, it's kept within 2 hours. Good. Great. Great. Anyone else has any other questions? If not, otherwise we can handle that during the email time if certain questions do pop up. So, and in closing, the 8:30 Singapore time is a little bit reaching full house capacity right now. So we are hitting almost 40. So we're not sure whether we want to take any, bigger number because this is the second level. We just want to make sure that we keep it in the right proportion. So for those who are thinking about the 8:30 Singapore time, please, if you're already decided, please let us know soon. The 3 p.m. slot is still available. We still have about 15 more seats before we close. Okay, but I would recommend you to make a decision early, partly because we had a very good pre-course reading material that students really enjoy a lot, and we also want you to be able to be coached by another coach at the second level so that you can kind of have a difference, so that you can see the difference between the core and the second level, and that will really help you to enjoy your learning at the second. As you embark on your learning in the 15th of November or 8th of November. Can do? Great. And also at the same time, for those who have decided, kind of like I will pull you back for refresher course. You know what I mean? Kind of like I'll be doing certain practical lab, and that's why I want to make sure that I recondition your mindset or kind of like, set the benchmark a little bit, for you to, warm up before you did dive into the learning on, when it starts. Can do? Great. So thank you for joining, and certainly look forward to be able to have some of you with me in the second level. So take care.